If you have kids, love kids, work with kids, or in an ecosystem where kids are around and you are somehow responsible for their care and their well-being, that could be in a school, in a program, or even in your home, you've probably hit this wall before. It often sounds like if I try to have boundaries, then I lose control of my house, my classroom, etc., right? If I don't lay down the law, then nothing's gonna get done. I get it, I've seen it, I've heard it all. I've worked in schools, I've worked in nonprofits, kids in the house. Like, I feel you. Even in therapy, and honestly, sometimes even in my own head. But today in this video, I wanna talk about a reframe. Boundaries are not about power. Boundaries are about clarity. And today I want to go over a trauma-informed lens to be able to set boundaries that helps people hold expectations while also creating a space for healing. A lot of times we think, and sometimes we even put out there unintentionally, that trauma-informed care is a lack of expectations. And it's not. It's moving away from a punitive system, but not so far that we are exhibiting pity or no expectations, to have high expectations while also meeting people with a high amount of compassion. And so let's talk about some actual phrases and actual frameworks that you can use to set boundaries no matter where you are and which kids that you're working with. So let's talk about brains for a second. If you follow this page and you've been through some of the content that we put out, you probably know about the sequential processing of information. You probably know about the stress response system. You probably know a little bit about what happens to our brains, how they're wired when we are raised with significant trauma, when we experience a lot of stress, or even if we haven't. And today, if I experience a lot of acute stress, something happens to me right now, what changes in that moment when I'm experiencing that stress? And when we are under that stress, when we grow up having a lot of it, the part of our brain that takes care of emotional regulation, empathy, flexibility, along with all those executive functioning things that are really important for our day-to-day, they can go offline super fast. And boundaries, when we actually do them right, they don't have to be punitive. Actually, when we do them right, they're not. They are not a punishment, they're a regulating force. But if a boundary feels inconsistent, vague, or aggressive, kids are going to pick up on that, and their nervous systems are going to pick up on that. It can often trigger a defensive or a protective reaction in the brain, and then what happens? Power struggle, shutdown, or even worse, a complete rupture or injury to our relationship. We've all been there, right? So when we talk about this, it's important to understand how some of those, when boundaries go wrong kind of moments, what they can do to our brains. Because I know a lot of us, whether you're watching this as a parent, an educator, a therapist, or all of those, sometimes especially when kids, when they don't respond well to our attempts at boundary setting, we think that they are automatically being defiant or resistant. And a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times, it's actually a protective mechanism that their brain is doing, where they are going down that polyvagal ladder. They are going down to the depths of their nervous system and their brainstem, whatever model you want to use, but they're responding from a place of hurt or anger or fear. And we have to be able to get to a place to where we're, one, communicating boundaries effectively on a regular basis, and then also understanding that when we're in that moment of relationship injury, how do we repair, how do we regulate, and how do we get to a place where our relationships feel whole again? I recently heard Esther Perel, one of the therapists that I really look up to, and if you haven't checked out her social media or her books, I encourage you to dive in. She's excellent, super insightful, and she really puts things in a way that my brain can comprehend. And I heard her on a recent podcast say that boundaries are actually a way to stay in a relationship. So, we're not just teaching behavior. That's really what boundaries are doing. They're teaching our brains and other people, how do we stay in a relationship with each other in a safe way. So there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different frameworks that you'll see out there in the universe, or whatever, in therapy world, and whatever kind of content you're watching, that'll talk about how we effectively set boundaries for everybody. To me, number one is being clear about what's okay and what's not. Setting a limit right off bat, making it crystal clear. One that I say a lot is, especially if I'm leading or in charge of a group of young people, or really with anybody, is that safety is my number one priority. It is my number one job to ensure that everybody in this space, at least while you're with me, is safe. And I make it clear that that means physical safety and also psychological safety. And it's simple, it's clear, it's direct, there's no gray area. This is not about like coming off as I'm the boss of you. It's not the tone police or threatening consequences. It's about communicating my role with clarity and compassion, so everybody kind of starts to get an idea of no matter what happens, we're going to come back to, TJ's going to make sure that we maintain safety for everybody. Other examples that might even come under that is I'm not okay with people talking to each other in that way in this space. Something else is it's not okay to throw things, even when you're frustrated. I can hear that you're frustrated. It's okay to be frustrated, and it's not okay to throw things at other people. In our trainings in trauma-informed care, it's common that I'll have a classroom teacher especially raise their hand and say, I hear what you're telling me about trauma. I hear what you're telling me about how it changes the brain, and kids who have experienced trauma might interpret something I'm doing that is neutral as aggressive. And I hear how you're telling me that their brains get shut down, their cortex can go offline. How do I manage that while still having expectations? And this is where I want to remind us of a concept called dialectical thinking. And it's the idea that two things that might seem to be in opposition with each other, 6, 7. If you're watching this a few years from now, you'd be like, what is he talking about? But two things that can be in opposition with each other can both be true at the same time. So I can hold rigorous and high expectations, academic expectations and standards for kids in my classroom, as you should. I believe kids need us to believe in them. They need us to push them so they can rise to the standards that we help them set for themselves. You can do that while also understanding everything that we talk about with trauma-informed care. And this isn't where I'm giving you a checklist. This work isn't, it lives in the gray. It's not black and white. So maybe it means, Susie, you're going to do this assignment. It's a standard in this classroom. I know you can do it, and I'm here to support you along the way. What does that look like? Can I help you after class? Can we get you a tutor? What does that extra support mean? So again, think high expectations also with high levels of compassion. And that's kind of where this bridge comes in. It's connection and choice. So let's say a kid is experiencing a state of dysregulation in your care. So maybe, you can take a break. Would you like to take a break, or would you like to, right now, talk about what's frustrating you? And this honors the differences that we have. Think about when you're upset, when you are really hurt or frustrated or confused or aggravated or irritable. Do you immediately want space, or do you immediately want support? We're all different. And so just being able to offer choice in different ways allows somebody to take empowerment and ownership over what they need in that minute. We're not taking away where we eventually have to go, right? We're offering choice and connection. Now, here's the hard part is we're not always going to have time to do probably what's best practice. There might be a student or in your classroom, or maybe if you're a school leader, there might be a teacher who sometimes that says, based on what just happened, I am super dysregulated. I really crashed out. I need 20 minutes to decompress before I can do anything. It's not disrespect. It is self-awareness and a level of emotional regulation that's really nice. And sometimes we can't do that. And when that happens, maybe there's different choice. And again, start with connection. I hear you. Right now, I don't know if we have 20 minutes to do that. What can we do right now in this moment to help you? Can I get you a glass of water? Is there somewhere you can go just to take a few minutes? Could I watch your classroom while you take a walk? It's not perfect. It's not like exact science, but start with that connection, start with that validation, and then offer what choices that do exist in this moment. Not talked about enough and not practiced enough. Skills that we need to continue, we all need to do better at, is repair when needed. Boundaries do not always go smoothly. Sometimes both people, the parent and the child, the teacher and the student, are dysregulated and stressed because of what's going on right now. Maybe we're both working out of the lower parts of our brain. Maybe I said something that wasn't a clear boundary. Maybe it was something and my tone was different and it was punitive in the way it felt to that other person. Or maybe, maybe the student said something to me that really triggered me in a way that I wasn't prepared to hear or feel in the middle of a classroom discussion. And it caused me to do something in retaliation. It happens. Some of the best relationships I've formed with young people that I serve actually came after I caused a rupture or a relationship injury. And what I did and how it worked out has taught me so much in the power of repair when it comes to relationship building. I'll give you an example. One time, many, many moons ago, when I was working in attendance for a local school district, there was a young man who was so chronically absent. He already had a truancy case, and he was towing the line of going to jail for not coming to school. And I was having a hard time getting in touch with him and to do an attendance conference, which is basically an intervention of why are you not coming to school and how can we help you. And one day I was in his high school and the attendance clerk at the front told me, this young man is actually at lunch right now if you want to try to, get him and have a conversation. And I must have not been having a good day because I walked up, I see the young man. I had never met him, I don't think, at this point. And I walked up to him. He was at the table with his friends, high school kid, 15, 16 years old. And I called him by name in a tone that was very, I was calling him out. And he looks at me and I basically put him, I put him on blast. Like I put his business out there in front of his friends. And so he responded in a way that was very defensive. Knowing what we know, his brain went into a state of protection, as it does. It's a natural reaction. And it didn't go well. He did not choose to speak with me. Now, I went back to my office, and as I was documenting it, it just didn't feel well. And I said, I can't in good nature follow through with any course of action based on the way I approached this child. So I went back to school the next day, and I asked him if he would be willing to have a conversation with me. He said, sure. And the first thing I said was, I need to apologize to you. The way I approached you yesterday and the way I handled that, it wasn't cool. And I'm sorry. That's not, the values that I try to stand for. So would you be willing to start over? Can we just have a conversation? Because I don't want you to get in trouble with this. And I want to be able to support you in the best way that I can. Can you help me do that? And our whole relationship was changed. And I went on to work with him and both of his two younger siblings. And, even to this day, sometimes the younger brother, I still talk to him and see how he's doing. And we ended up starting to make some generational change together in his family because of that. And it was all because, and this isn't to pat myself on the back, you can do this too, but it was because I was willing to humble myself and make a direct and an intentional effort of repair. So when you have that situation arise, when boundary setting does not go well, there's certain things that you can say. Maybe, what I tried to do today just really didn't land. It didn't go the way I wanted. Can we try again? Or maybe it's, what happened earlier, I meant the boundary. I need to apologize for my tone. It didn't really go well. I was in a bad place. I was XYZ. How are you feeling? So I didn't mean the tone. I did mean the boundary. I need to restate it again. And so a challenge this week, before we even get into the tool, is maybe replace a "because I said so" with a boundary and a bridge combo. It's not being soft. It's about being solid and relational. And actually, you will stop fighting biology. You will stop fighting against somebody else's brain states by being clear with a calm tone, a neutral tone, a loving tone, rooted in relationship. And I actually bet you'll be surprised by how much energy and frustration you save yourself in some of those power struggles. So if you want to try this, please try it. If you do, let me know in the comments how it goes for you, or if it doesn't go well. Throw it in the comments, and maybe me or even somebody from our community can offer some support. But just try it in your school, in your home, in your programs, and just get some immediate advice. If you want something practical to try this week, you can download the Boundary Bridge script that we've prepared. I'll put a link in the comments. It's free, it's printable. It gives you some kind of like training wheel phrases that you can try. Some of the ones that maybe you've heard in this video, plus a few more. And remember, boundaries do not break connection, they build it. Thank you, and let's keep doing great together.